All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Sam Renaud. I am one of the co-founders and on the board of directors of Sports Biz Camps. We are excited to have this morning's camp kickoff with 4 exceptional entrepreneurs, branding professionals, marketing professionals, media professionals. Appreciate all of you guys coming to join us. A few moments of housekeeping before we get started. Campers, remember to be checking into your Career Explorer past programming. There are points to be won, there are scholarships to be won, prizes, memorabilia. Make sure you're looking at all these chalk talks during your downtime. As we go through, feel free to have side conversations relevant to the panel in the chat function. If you want to ask questions of the panel, please use the Q&A at the bottom. Destiny is here. Destiny, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Destiny and I'm one of the interns with Sports Biz Camps. I'll be taking questions in the chat, so just make sure that they're appropriate, and we'll make sure that every 5 to 10 minutes our industry professionals can answer those for you.
Thank you, Destiny. So as we go forward, I'm going to let Lauren Walsh kick us off, and we appreciate you all being here. Lauren, take it away.
Great, so I'll just give you a quick intro and then let everyone do the same. So I'm Lauren Walsh, president and founder of LW Branding, which is a boutique branding and marketing agency that strives to help change makers and thought leaders really understand what their why is in life and then achieve their wildest dreams. So what does that mean? We work high-level professional athletes, influencers, entrepreneurs, and help them understand that the things that make them unique to who they are as a person are the same things that can help them inspire and empower other people to live out their own dreams. We do that through marketing efforts. We handle all their marketing and endorsement deals, help them with their philanthropic efforts off the field and off the field, lots of media. So whether it be social media, public relations, handling things with the press, but it all goes back to them leaning into who they are, not who they think that their fans want them to be, but who they are as a true person, and allowing that to be what leads all the different marketing efforts that we put together. I'll pass it over to Chellee.
Great, thank you. I'm Chellee Stewart. I started Capture Sports Marketing just about 9 years ago, and we work with athletes, coaches, and teams across the country on their philanthropic efforts. So we're honored to be a part of JJ Watt's Hurricane Harvey efforts that raised $47 million. Have worked with his foundation for the past 8 years, as well as other athletes. So kind of similar to Lauren, is really being able to help them utilize their platform for good. Athletes have an amazing opportunity and platform to be able to do that. So we really work with them to figure out what impact they want to make and then how they're going to go about doing that. So anything from helping them create their own foundation to being able to develop their brand for their foundation, their website, their social media, their public relations surrounding it, what their launch is going to be, and then even events. So our largest event is a softball game that there's 30,000 people at, that offense plays against defense, and we raised about 1.6 million at, down to smaller intimate gatherings. And right now we're in the process of launching a couple of campaigns. One of them is called End Stigma, Change Lives, in regards to mental health, that we're partnering with Solomon Thomas from the 49ers, Michael Kopech from the White Sox, and several other athletes across the country to help reduce the stigma of mental health. I'll pass it to Haylee.
Thanks, Chellee. Hi, everyone. My name is Haylee Elwood. I am the media professional on this panel. I work as the team reporter for the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm going into my 7th season with the team, which is crazy because I feel like I just started yesterday. But along with my work for the Chargers, I also previously have hosted for the Los Angeles Lakers. I've worked the last 2 Super Bowls for the NFL. And one of the things I'm most proud of with the Chargers is the fact that last year I started a podcast called Playmakers, which focuses on female figures in sports. So my job is really cool because I do a lot of different things for the team, whether it's preseason sideline reporting, writing articles for the website, interviewing players for videos, and then also the auditory work but it's just a really cool outlet to be able to sort of be with a team, tell player stories, also talk about the good that they do. My husband knows Lauren well. He's our community relations manager. So being able to share those positive stories is a huge part of it. And also just being able to really connect with fans and with the team on that basis. So with that said, I will pass it to Brittney.
Hello, I'm Brittney Bogues, and I own a Bogues Consulting Group, and we specialize in communications, public affairs, and event planning with a strong focus on public relations, marketing, and event production. And our clients are specifically entrepreneurs, small businesses, as well as professional athletes. And I've been in business for about 2 years, and one of our first big events was working NBA All-Star when I was in Charlotte with Bleacher Report. It was a huge activation. It was a great way to kind of kick off our working relationship and really making a splash in the sports industry. We represent over 26 athletes, helping them get appearances, helping them with their nonprofit, and also helping them with their social media. So I'm so excited to join all these other wonderful, talented women today.
All right, Lauren, let's bring it back to you, and I'll let you lead this thing with Destiny supporting from the Q&A side. Unless we've lost you. No, hopefully she comes back. Chellee, you're live already. Let's go back. Let's take this back. So we're talking to high school kids, high school students and college students. When you were in high school and college, what were you thinking about? What were your goals, and how were you starting to understand how you can approach those goals?
Sure. Initially, when I went from high school to college, my plan was in psychology world. So I actually ended up with both psychology and business degrees solely because I wanted to be able to make an impact. I think what I share a lot with both athletes as well, or with high school students and athletes and college students, is creating that network. Creating and getting to know a whole bunch of different individuals, being able to shadow different people so that you really understand what that looks like, doing internships, volunteering, to be able to learn more about anything and everything that you want to do. I have a high school student right now, son, and we're going through that process of, okay, go do it, give it a try. You might think that you want to do it, but until you actually learn and do it, you might not know. And I think the second biggest thing that I tell everybody is your social media. Really, really pay attention to what you have on social media. I always say, if you wouldn't let your grandma read it, don't put it out there. Because I can tell you, as employers, we look at that stuff. We look at what individuals, how they're portraying themselves and what they put out there. So those would be my two biggest: the networking, as well as remembering what you have on social media is only for your grandma.
All right, let's go around the room on that one then. Haylee, let's go to you next. What were you thinking back then, and what were you doing to address it?
Yeah, I mean, I will say to any of you who are in this, congratulations, because you're way further ahead than what I had thought I was going to be doing back in high school. I originally was really into political science and politics and thought, you know what, I'm going to major in that in college. That's what I'm going to do. But then the more I thought about it, a lot of poli-sci majors end up going to law school, and that wasn't something that I had really kind of thought or really kind of wanted to do. So I figured, you know what, okay, I'll major in communications. Yes, it's broad. But the backstory was I grew up with parents who worked for a local news station. So that was, I think, sort of always in the back of my head, that sort of media business. I always loved going to the station, visiting them, checking out the control room. My dad was the news director. My mom worked in community affairs. She is still there, excuse me. But I think that was kind of always on the back burner, but I never really thought about pursuing a career in broadcasting until actually after I graduated college. So I graduated from UC San Diego with a degree in communication, and I was working full-time at a dance studio. I was managing a dance studio, which I knew wasn't going to be my career, but it was my pay the bills kind of job because I was still living in San Diego and all of that. So one day I was a huge football fan, grew up watching football. My dad loved it. He's from Wisconsin. Chellee will know, if you're from Wisconsin and you're a Packers fan, it's like a religion back there. So that was the house. Yeah, that was the household I grew up in. So I kind of always loved football to the point where I never really wanted the season to end. And I figured, you know what? I think I'm going to kind of pursue a career in this. So what I ended up doing was I ended up going back to school, not for my master's program, but I ended up going back to a junior college in San Diego that had a great broadcasting program, because as much as I loved UC San Diego and my comm degree from there, it was very theoretical and I needed all the hands-on work that I could get. So I did a year there. I wrote for their paper. I worked on their newscast and I got a reel together. And I just didn't know where to start. But to Shelly's point, networking was so, so huge. My best friend had a friend who he still is working in PR at NFL Network, and she had connected us. And I just said, hey, is there anyone who I could reach out to just kind of pick their brain about this business? And he had connected me with a producer who ended up just sort of giving me tips, put a reel together, start reaching out to people and reach out to people behind the scenes. You see the reporters and the anchors and the broadcasters, but it's the people behind them who are the ones who make decisions on talent and all of that. So I just kind of started reaching out to people. And one kind of funny thing, I'm totally with Chellee on social media. Be careful what you post. But almost all of my jobs I've gotten from social media, which is really crazy. When the Chargers had first posted their contributing writer position, I saw it on Twitter and I applied. When the Lakers had posted that they were looking for in-arena hosts, saw it on Twitter and applied. My first kind of job in this business was working for Fox Sports Next and Scout.com, which was high school football recruiting. And I just kind of found the person who was in charge of it. He had open DMs on Twitter. I sent him a message and he messaged me back and brought me in for an interview. So working those connections and to kind of bring it back to what I had said up top, if you guys know you want to pursue a career in sports, good job, good for you. And now it's sort of acting on that. And I think you're also growing up and coming up in an environment that's evolved tremendously, even from when I really started, 7, 8, 9 years ago. There's so much more access now. So just kind of using those relationships, networking, and it'll all work out to your advantage for sure.
All right, Brittney, same question. What's high school you thinking?
Sure. Like in high school, I kind of was like Chellee, and I wanted to help people make an impact. So I went into Wake Forest, wanting to go into psychology. But then I got into the class and realized, I really am not that good at psychology. So I ended up going into sociology, which is like the study of people and trends in society. And it was so fascinating for me. And then during that time, I ended up getting an internship with Russ Parr Morning Show, which is like a national syndicated radio show. And it was a wonderful experience because I got to work in every department. So I got to actually work on the show and work in the marketing department and sponsorship and just see how the radio kind of runs. And my mentor was the head of the public affairs department. And just seeing her work day, it started early but got to end early. She was on the phone. She was talking to media. She was hanging out with celebrities. I just couldn't believe it was a job. Like it just seemed like so much fun. And so when I got back to Wake Forest, I immediately changed my major to communication. And after that, I just really loved it. When I did graduate though, it was the height of the recession. So I just created my own business, my first business from there. So what I will say to high schoolers is definitely don't be afraid to be creative in your path. Don't be afraid to be authentically yourself. And don't be afraid to use, like Chellee and Haylee said, don't be afraid to network and use those relationships, because it's all about network building and maintaining authentic relationships.
Great advice, especially now more than ever when the spotlight is on you. Being authentic and being yourself is going to be critical, and at the same time you've got to understand there are consequences sometimes to being yourself too, so you've got to understand what's coming in that sense. Lauren, we'll finalize this one with you, and then I'll go to Destiny with some audience questions. So Lauren, high school you, where are you?
Yeah, so my path to get to where I am today is completely non-traditional. In high school, heading into college, I was set to be a cheerleader at Purdue. And outside of that, all I knew was fashion. So my dream was to become the buyer for Saks Fifth Avenue. So I went into Purdue with a retail management major. And then actually the summer following freshman year, I got an internship at the Chicago Board of Trade as a broker's assistant working on the trading floor. Fell in love with the stock market, added financial planning as a second major. So came out of college actually thinking that I was going to be a stockbroker for the rest of my life. And then, I actually was working for one of the major companies when everything crashed back at the time when I was with them. I think it was 2008. So I watched everything happen, things go up in the air. So after coming out of graduation from college, I realized that things were changing a little bit. Lots of the trading markets were closing. The floor looked a little bit different. So my biggest thing, and this is my biggest piece of advice, is don't focus too narrowly on, oh, I have to have this path. Everyone's path is completely different. Every single person I've ever met who works in sports, they have some sort of like winding path. Nothing is linear. So I think it's important to understand a lot of people don't have that perfect background where it's, oh, I went into PR and now I do PR for professional athletes. It's very different. So just like for me, it took a lot of different steps, a lot of different jobs. I took tons of jobs along the way that simply were jobs for me to be able to pay the bills so that I could pursue my dreams. And I think one other thing to highlight, I love what everyone said about social media, so I won't even harp on that. But one other thing I wish someone had told me when I was back in high school was that everyone's opinion around you just does not matter, because a lot of the people that you're so concerned about of what they think about you or what college you go to, what your major is in, these are people 10 years down the line, you're probably not going to even remember their names. And I wish someone had told me back then, because this is something that took me until I was a grown adult and had a child to be able to come to understand that other people's opinions of me really do not matter. But I promise, if you stop wasting so much time on those things and can focus in on who you are and what you have to offer to the world, and just allow that to guide you, one, it'll be a huge weight lifted off your shoulders, but I think you'll start to slowly ease into wherever you are supposed to be.
Lauren, I love the winding path because I think, when I was done with college, I went to work for a nonprofit. I was in the nonprofit world for 12 years plus. And there, because of it being a nonprofit, we wore many, many hats that quite honestly really prepared me to be an entrepreneur as to where it was. And from there, I went to association management. So it was, sports kind of wasn't in my wheelhouse at that point. It was then that through networking, a gentleman had purchased a sports team here in Milwaukee that he said, okay, with your nonprofit background, your marketing background, can you come in and start a foundation for us and then be our marketing? So that was really my first introduction to true professional sports. And there is where I, was able to put together and saw the impact and the platform that these athletes have, which essentially built my business plan for my company. So it was definitely a winding road.
I will say, kind of unlike these ladies, I at first didn't even want to kind of get into sports. My dad is a professional athlete. He's Muggsy Bogues. And so I grew up my entire life with him being an athlete. And so I kind of wanted to stay away from sports. But then when I graduated and I had these skills of communication and social media and public relations, and it was the recession, I was like, well, I might as well use these skills. And he was my first client. And so it really has been a really big blessing and a really great lesson for me because it's taught me a lot about how to grow social media and how to handle public relations and booking appearances and things like that. And then I can translate those skills to other athletes and figure out their why and really help them connect authentically with their audiences. So like you said, no path is traditional.
Yeah, and then I'll just kind of tag on to that. I mean, again, I worked at a dance studio for 11 years when I was just kind of trying to figure it out. It was the pay the bills kind of job. And luckily they were so great. I had danced there previously, but they were so great in accommodating to letting me adjust my hours and kind of do these side jobs. At one point I was working for the Lakers, driving up to games. I was working at the dance studio, and then I was also working Chargers games that fall. So I had 3 things going on, but that path is one of the biggest questions I get, because I think when you see on camera roles, you think, oh, what do I have to do, or who can I follow? And there was a point in my career where I was in between on camera jobs. I was writing for the Chargers. I hadn't been promoted to my current role, and my job with the Lakers had just ended. And I was talking with someone who's become a mentor to me, and she said, you know, no path is the same. Everyone's path is different. And you really cannot try to replicate someone's, because it just won't happen that way. And it was kind of like the same analogy that we would use to parents at the dance studio when they'd be frustrated, like, oh, how come my child isn't progressing? And it's every dancer is a flower, and flowers bloom differently. And that's sort of that exact same path advice that I give to people, because you just kind of can't get frustrated. You will figure it out. You just have to be patient, for sure.
I want to let Destiny jump in here. Let's get some questions from the audience. I think it's a good breaking point. Destiny, what do you have for us?
All right, so there's definitely an import of questions, but one that I found that's great. All of you are essentially, just being women in the sporting industry, we know that we were essentially served as a minority. So what adversity have you faced as a woman starting your own business, and what skills and just how did you overcome?
You want to start? Anybody?
Oops, sorry, I lost everybody. I can start for that. For me, my grandma was an entrepreneur way back when. So I had the role model of somebody who back in those days didn't even start companies. And so for us and for me, there was kind of the mindset that whatever you wanted to do, if you worked hard enough, you could do it. And so I really have taken that mindset throughout my life. And so starting a business in the sports industry that's male dominated for me, yes, it took extra effort, it took extra hard work, but I think it's going back to that networking ability, to the being authentic as to who you are, and really being willing to put in the hard work that ultimately gained the respect.
Anybody else want to? No, Lauren, go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree with that respect piece. I think, here's the reality. There definitely is the adversity. There's no question that it's a male-dominated industry. I think back years ago when I got started, and probably very similar to everyone else here, there were even less women. I love seeing the fact that there are so many of us here on this panel, and continue to see tons of women coming up as agents and marketing professionals and helping run foundations across the sports world. But honestly, just 5 years ago, you walked into the NFL Combine and it was 98% male. I mean, that's the reality of how it's been. And so to Chellee's point, the biggest thing has been being able to prove yourself on the right level. So there's been adversity, but I think the biggest thing for me has been being able to say no. Because I think sometimes when you realize that you're in a position where maybe you are the minority, the fact that you are a woman in that industry, you feel like you have to do certain things a certain way, or maybe compromise certain things. And the reality is that you gain the respect of the right people by simply showing up, doing the work, doing it built on a really strong foundation that's going to be based on your values and the things that you believe in, and not being afraid to say no. I've also started to use it to my advantage. A lot of the individuals that I talk to, a lot of the potential clients, their moms want to be on this call with me. And so, it's playing off of that, the fact that, me also being a mother and being able to resonate with that, if they're on the call and they're asking questions, or, saying, well, how are you going to deal with this? And I'm like, look, I've got a child too. So I think it's also figuring out what are the things of being a woman, the fact that sometimes we can be more empathetic, or, if you have kids, whatever these things are, also being able to flip it and allow it to play to your advantage, for me, has been the biggest way to overcome a lot of that adversity.
Did anybody else want to touch on that, or?
I can just briefly say, being a woman in business in general, women receive less funding, grant funding, just funding in general, lack of resources, lack of opportunities. And so in general, being a woman starting a business is just, a little harder in that regard, but kind of echoing everybody else, as long as you're going to face some adversity, but as long as you are steadfast, work hard, and confident in your abilities, and network, have mentors. And it's really important to not only have a mentor, but have a sponsor too. Have someone of, the opposite sex that you can talk to that can maybe, vouch on your behalf and speak for you at tables that you may not be present at. That's really powerful.
Brittney, I love that. I love sorry, Haylee. I was gonna say, I love the mentorship aspect of it as well. And I love having I always call it my own little board of people that, fellow women entrepreneurs, men in all different industries, successful business people just starting out that you can bounce ideas off with and share ideas. Even if we're in the same, portion of the industry, you'll find that if you reach out and you ask for advice or ask for help or ask for feedback, people are willing to give it.
And then I'll just kind of finish this question off. My situation's a little different because I don't own my own business, but being a woman in a media role, yeah, there's a lot of adversity that you face, and it is a little more challenging, or can be. But I will say, I was really, really appreciative of the Chargers 7 years ago, back in the 2014 season, to hire me as a woman. My boss was a woman, so I loved that at the time. But to sort of take that chance on me, and honestly, I've never felt, sectioned off by my gender at all. I just kind of went in and was like, you know what, I'm gonna kind of do this. I actually was part-time at that time. I was part-time for 3 years. And I always felt like I sort of needed to reintroduce myself to players, and they'd be like, Haylee, we know you, like, it's fine. Like, I love the rookies because they were new and I could kind of come in because I wasn't there all the time. But I think it was Chellee and Lauren who talked about respect and empathy. And those are two huge things, especially if you want to be a reporter in this business, to build those relationships with players and coaches and staff members and earn their respect, because they are trusting you as a reporter to tell their stories, sometimes on topics that are very personal to them. It's not about football. It can be about something that happened in their lives, but to earn their respect and to sort of be that person that, you're not always asking them to do something. I've learned that. Laura Oakman, who works for Fox, she's one of my mentors, and she's talked a lot about how back in the day, she was always, that person who didn't want to bother a guy. It was like, I would text them about something and that was it if I needed something. And then one day she just kind of shot a text, and I forget who the player was, but he had said, hey, thanks for reaching out. And so you sort of have to realize, like, they're just guys at the end of the day. They are players, and they happen to do what they do really, really well. But to sort of build those relationships, that's super important. And then the big empathy word, that is huge, because you have to be able, if a game didn't go the way that obviously the team had wanted it to, cultivating your questions to just put yourself in their shoes and be empathetic to their situation. Obviously, being with the team, we never want to disparage any of the players or coaches or anything like that. So we're very sensitive to the situation. But having that empathy is really, really important. And honestly, it can take you a long way in this business, because having that empathy also earns that respect as well.
I think, Haylee, when you were saying treating them as guys, as humans, they're just players. I think, that's so important. You can't be starstruck if you're going to work in the sports industry. You have to realize they eat, sleep, and poop just like the rest of us. And so, to be able to have that thought going in, because if you're going into it because you want to meet a basketball player or a football player, or you want to meet a superstar, you're not going to be in the industry long.
Perfect. So leading into the next question, our campers have already taken the first step to really developing themselves in their career. And we touched a little bit earlier on personal branding. So what essentially can our students do? We're young high school and college students, to essentially build our brand without having to work with like very prestigious or well-known organizations, how could we really build a strong reputation?
I'll jump in. So one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give anyone regarding branding, you need to understand you can't build a personal brand. You have to literally just own what your personal brand is. So what that means is you need to understand where your strengths and weaknesses come in, and then how that can be applied to the industry. A lot of us have mentioned reaching out. I think what most people get caught up in is that you put these people on pedestals. So whether it's these people, all of us right here on the panel, or a professional athlete, and you assume that people are, out of reach. The reality is that you have to take the time to reach out to people and ask them things about themselves. So one of the biggest ways you could start to build your own network is start to reach out and ask people, hey, what was your path? What is your biggest piece of advice? Hey, I'm in high school, or I just started college. What would you tell to your younger self, or what's some sort of advice that you can give me? I think a lot of times it's easy to reach out and ask for things. And I'm sure all of us get that all the time when people ask, hey, do you have any internships? Do you have job opportunities? So the biggest thing is going to be make sure that when you start reaching out to people, one, get over the fear of the fact that, yes, maybe they won't respond, but who cares if someone doesn't respond to you, or who cares if you ask for a phone call and they say no? It doesn't matter. You can keep going. There's hundreds and thousands of other people to keep going towards. Also, I think one great way to kind of put that brand out there, which I saw someone asking a question about, is it important to put out the positive things? Is it just as important to do that as it is to avoid the negative things? Yes. One of the biggest things you need to understand is that if you want to work in this industry, your social media is not social. Social media went out the window years ago, okay? Social media is the internet. It's where people go to find information, to find out about people. I personally, when I'm going to hire someone, I literally go through social media posts back to when they started actually that account. And that's the same thing I do for all the clients that we work with. So make sure that what you're putting out there shows why you are someone that should be hired. Have you overcome adversity? Have you dealt with something that's been really tough? Do you have something that's very unique about you to offer to the industry? Those are the things you have to be putting out there, because I will also tell you, you cannot say that you are hiding your gifts and calling it humility. Okay, if you have gifts and you have something to offer the world, put it out there. Don't wait for someone to have to dig that out of you and figure out what it is. Put yourself out there in a way where people can understand what those value adds are that you bring to the world, so that if I come across your social media, whether you reached out to me or not, maybe you simply followed me after this panel, and I'm scrolling through and I'm saying, wow, this person's impressive. I want to reach out. Maybe they want an internship. That's going to put you in a much better position than having to feel like you're coming from this place of needing to ask for a million things.
Destiny, you want to do one more question? Or Chellee, I'm sorry if you had something to say. Go for
Oh,
it.
I was just gonna say, well said, Lauren.
I hate to make anybody follow that. I'm sorry. I'm going to pass this off to Destiny and make her find another good question.
Okay, so as I said, that most of our campers right now, they're in high school, early college. So would you suggest a high school student or, an early college student starting a business if they have a great idea or passion for it, or should they wait? So I know there isn't essentially a timeline on entrepreneurship, but what would be your opinions and thoughts on a high school student or early college student trying to start a business, and advice?
I would say if their business solves a solution for someone else, then do it. Like definitely do market research, have a business plan, but do it. I don't think there's any specific time to be a business owner. There are tons. There's this really successful kid entrepreneur who makes bow ties, and I know he is almost a millionaire. So I think that you can start at any time. So that's just my 2 cents.
I'll just kind of add one thing. I totally am in agreement with Brittney. If you have an idea, go for it. One thing I get asked a lot from a lot of young reporters or people who aspire to be in the broadcasting business is sort of like, well, what can I do if I don't have a job? And honestly, one of the easiest things right now, well, granted, we're in a little bit of a different time with COVID and all of that, but I tell them, get credentialed by your high school sports association. In Southern California, it's the CIF, and go to games and bring a camera and maybe talk to the coaches, shoot some interviews, do some stand-ups, things like that, and start a YouTube channel, start a Vimeo channel. There's so many more outlets right now. And this is kind of what I mentioned up top, that's just so different from when I had even started less than 10 years ago, that makes sort of trying to break in or find your own niche really, really easy in that sense. So I think if you have an idea, if you want to start a podcast, go for it. If you want to film something, go for it. I think there's so many different avenues now with the way that media has presented itself that certainly makes that a little more easy than it was maybe a decade ago.
Let's move into some specific skill building. So I know we're talking a lot about different things you can do and finding mentors and networking and all that. As somebody in high school is starting to consider college, what should they be studying? How should they be thinking about their own interests, their own personality traits, and forming those into a professional career, sort of mapping out the professional career? What can they do now to make that plan?
I think being able to volunteer and getting some experience as to, different things that you think you might like to be able to do. Again, you're in high school, you're going into college. There's going to be change. Like I said, I went in thinking I was going to do psychology, and I did 2 internships and said, I can't do this every day for the rest of my life, and added in a business major with marketing emphasis. But I tell you what, I use psychology a lot in my job. And so it's still very helpful. I think there's a lot of pressure to know all the answers right now for high school and early college students. And I think planning is great, and getting experience and getting access to different things so you can try things out is wonderful, but you don't have to know today what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
I would say, as far as skills, just knowing that your soft skills are just as important as your hard skills. So if you are interested in marketing or PR, definitely, looking at maybe different social media platforms or schedulers or different things like that you can use, like Hootsuite or Sprout or things like that. And getting familiar with that if you want to, but also looking at your soft skills, really learning how to build an authentic relationship with someone and maintaining it in a professional kind of way, and maybe having a mentor and things like that.
I definitely think when you get to college, or if you have the opportunity in high school now, to take advantage of internships, because that was one thing that I didn't do. I ended up transferring. So when I graduated high school, I went to a junior college for 2 years. I transferred to UC San Diego. And when I was in college, I hate to say this, but I just kind of wanted to graduate and be done with school. And I do love school, but at that point I was like, okay, I'm ready to, have my degree and be done. And I didn't take advantage of internships, but looking back, that could have been so helpful to me in my career, where I almost didn't have to do a reboot or a switch afterwards, where I was trying to kind of figure it out once I had graduated. So I think taking advantage of those internships, and even if it's something that you can kind of just get your foot in the door, taking advantage of internships, which then turns into taking advantage of relationships, because if you do a really great job at that internship, you have a reference for life, and you might cross paths with them at the end of the day eventually, because the sports world is extremely, extremely small. So, and to Chellee's point, dabble in all sorts of different areas. I started, my first internship that I had was actually, again, it was post-college. It was when I was back at the junior college, but it was with a sports management company. And that was sort of my first foray into it, where I was like, you know what, I really like sports, and they had some really top clients, but I realized that wasn't the avenue that I wanted to pursue, but it was a great step in the door. And I have still kept in contact with the woman who runs that business. We just ran into each other at the Super Bowl again this past year. And so being able to network and maintain those relationships is huge too.
You guys have all brought up internships. Let's get a little deeper into that. I think, Lauren, I'll start with you. In your field, where can high school students start looking for internships? What can they do to stand out, set themselves apart as they apply? And what age is the right age to begin that process, do you think?
I think you can start, as early as possible, at least doing internships or getting someone who's a mentor who will let you do some work on the side. I think it's, correct me if anyone else knows, I think it's teamwork always has tons of the professional sports internships. So that's a great place to go and look for internships with teams. As far as working for individual businesses, get on social media and start to find the right people like us. I mean, reaching out to us and saying, you know, hey, here's what I'm looking to do. Do you have any sort of advice? Again, it's not always about the ask. Sometimes it's about the value add. So what can you offer to someone asking those questions? And then I think also as it relates to reaching out, I look for people who stand out differently. So I love when someone sends me an email and their resume is attached, but they give me a little blurb. And it's not the full-on professional cover letter. It's, hey, Lauren, here's why I think I would be great to work for you. And here's why I think I'd be great to work for your company. You need to do your research. Do your research on that company, what their mission is, what their values are, and then the founder and the person who runs the department that you're reaching out to, you need to know something about them. The people who reach out to me and say, hey, I've been following you for X amount of years, and I love this, this, and this that you've done, those are the people that I'm very, very quick to respond to, because they deserve my time, because they took the time to go ahead and make sure that they did their research before they reached out. So do that and consider being different. Maybe you should put together a video. I always take this from the movie, The Intern, The Intern of the Internship, where he has to do a video resume. I mean, look, it's 2020. You have to figure out a way to set yourself apart. So if you're better on video, like if you're not great with words and writing isn't your thing, but you're great on video, why not put together a video and send it to the person that you're interested in? Don't make it super long. Make it 30 to 60 seconds and sell yourself in there and tell them, again, be specific as to why you align for that exact position and for that company.
Love that. Yeah, I think I echo Lauren in that reaching out, trying to get experience. We typically have interns in our office, ideally sophomore or junior year of college. We do have high school volunteers with us for many of our events, but I can tell you, you know, we have a team of 13. Of our 13, I think 3 or 4 of them were originally interns for me. And those internships came through exactly what Lauren was saying. They did their research on the company. They understood what we did. They knew coming in that they were going to make an impact, that they were going to be involved with athletes, but they were not going to be the athlete's best friend. And they weren't going to have access to the athlete right away. They were going to be in the realm. So I think understanding that, or quite honestly, they came to us because they were recommended by somebody I knew. You know, we've developed a great relationship with several colleges around the area, and the professors know that we take the best of the best. And this is the type of individual that we're looking for. And so they refer people to them. So I think it goes back again to that networking, to that doing your homework and doing your research as to why you even want to work with it. I think even going as far as LinkedIn, if somebody sends me a general LinkedIn and there's not a note and I don't know them, I'm not going to accept it. But if somebody took the time to look into who we are, why they are, why we want to connect, and they send me a note, I'm far more likely to connect and respond to them than just the randomness.
So I have kind of a funny story as to how I got my first job really with the Chargers back in 2014. So they had a posting for a contributing writer position. It was part-time. And like I said, I was in San Diego and I was like, you know what, I'm going to apply and see what happens, because even though it wasn't on camera or broadcasting, I figured, hey, I like to write, and getting in with a sports team I think could be really, really great experience. So they had posted it on Twitter, linked off to Teamwork Online. So I applied there. And then part of the application was actually missing on Teamwork Online. So there was going to be a portion where they asked you questions and also to submit some writing samples, and those were not part of the application. So I figured, well, I'm going to submit this, and then I'm going to kind of go back and see who's in charge of hiring this position. And I was able to figure out his email address, which if you work with the NFL world, like every email is different, it's all formatted differently, but I figured it out. And I had sent him a letter, an email, like to Lauren's point, I had reached out to him. I had attached my resume and I just said, you know, hi, I'm Haylee Elwood. I just applied for this position, but I also noticed, you know, a few of the questions were missing. Here are my responses. And then my personal anecdote was a year before, when I was working on the weekly newscast for that junior college that I kind of went back and did some broadcasting work with, they let me cover the Chargers 2013 draft. I went to their sort of media day. So I had reached out to him and said, hey, you know, I was just in your media room a year ago, and that personal anecdote sort of made that connection. And after I got hired, he told me, hey, if you hadn't reached out personally, I honestly probably wouldn't have been able to find your application in the midst of however many that we had. So that's what I always say too, is apply for sure. Do the application online. But if you can send the note on LinkedIn, like to Chellee's point, email someone, make that sort of personal connection, that can help you definitely in the long run, definitely establish that relationship and maybe kind of bump you up to potentially be interviewed for sure.
Perfect. So going into one of our questions, for a student that would want to get into a role like yours, what skills, programs, certifications, or courses should they look to and pursue in order to really build their experience and get to a position like yours?
So I think that one of the biggest things is being a part of the right groups. I think getting this direct insight from the people who are actually doing the job sometimes are the best ways. Right now is the best time to do it. Get on LinkedIn and become a part of these groups that offer tons of different conversations. If you're a female who wants to get into the industry, there's a group called A Seat at the Table. It's actually ran by a very successful woman who works for the NFL League office. She weekly actually has women come on and share their journey. I see tons of other groups on there as well that they're hosting panels like this. This is where you're going to get the real insight. You want to be able to get someone's journey so that you can then figure out, okay, how do I take what that person said and apply it to my life, as opposed to here's the cookie cutter thing of, okay, you're going to major in PR and marketing, and then you're going to get this internship, because it's probably not going to go that way. So I would highly suggest focusing on that, focusing on the ways that you can, get more information from these types of people. And then, I do think that there's so many great courses out there. There's also lots of free resources on YouTube. So when I first got started with my company, I was YouTubing things all the time, whether it's simple hacks about social media, how the algorithms are changing on all the different platforms. All of that stuff can be found for free. So you just have to take the time to educate yourself. I don't think that there's one kind of golden ticket that's going to teach you everything, but you have to be an advocate for yourself. And I would say you have to also be doing it on a daily basis and making it a point to learn as much as you can with all the new things. So things are constantly changing.
Learn every day. Learn every day. I mean, the number of articles that we read and share with amongst our team, to be able to stay up and be prepared as to what is going on in not only sports, but in public relations as a whole, what's going on in the society, so that you're not tone deaf. I mean, be educated and take the time to do that for yourself. I also think being, I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but knowing your strengths and weaknesses, what does that look like, so that you can build up on some of your weaknesses to be able to know exactly what you need to work on and exactly what you can utilize to help pitch yourself for it. The skill sets that we have, I'm looking for a good human. Overall, that they have the same values, they have the same morals as we do as a company. I'm looking for somebody who is willing to work hard and know for our company, it's a small company. So you're going to have to do some of the greatest things, the highest level things, but you're also going to probably have to take out the garbage. So it's a full scope because we're a smaller company. You're going to get to wear many different hats, but being organized for us, like you have to be organized. And I think probably the strongest one is, how are you able to make relationships with people? because our business ultimately is about relationships. It's about being able to work with the media. It's about being able to work with the athlete. It's about being able to work with the foundation or their family members or who that is. So being able to have authentic relationships, I think, is something that has helped me, because outside of my very first job out of college, every other job I received was a referral until I got to where I was. I never blindly applied again after that. It was just the relationships that I was able to make and be able to keep that helped me to continue to grow to get to where I am today.
Yeah, all of that is such good advice. I will say one sort of practical thing, if you want to get into broadcasting, that I just live and die by, is you should be a good writer. There's so many writing skills that go into being a good reporter. And I truly don't think that you can be a good reporter if you're not a good writer. I'm writing every day, constantly. And if it's not direct articles that go to Chargers.com, it's questions that I'm going to ask players. It's stand-ups, take when I do our preseason sideline reporting, we'll have a production meeting that morning and say, kind of run through, okay, so top of show. So after the booth discusses this, Haylee, you're going to talk about, the fourth preseason game and the importance of that. And then I will go back, but you have 30 seconds. And it's like, okay, then I'll go back and I'll constantly be writing my stand-up. I'll time myself. I'll go back. That was too long. Let's rewrite it. So I think just being able to have that written skill is really, really important. And one thing that I've kind of looked back on is when I started with the Chargers as a writer, I was interviewing guys, but I was just using my phone and conducting interviews that way. And then I'd transcribe and write the article. But those reps that I had interviewing players for a written piece were so invaluable because there was no pressure. There's no camera on you. There's, nothing like that. So you can have those conversations with them. And that was ultimately the best training that I had, where I was talking to players sort of without the spotlight being on as to what I do now, where I do it on camera. But I just think those two things are huge. And then one other thing, to Chellee's point of being a good human, it's so simple and sounds almost kind of dumb to say, but just be really nice. This sports world is incredibly small. I met Lauren. I got connected through Lauren, through my husband. When Chellee reached out to me on LinkedIn, she does stuff with our head coach, Anthony Lynn's foundation. Like, it is incredibly small. And my 2 gigs that I've had working the Super Bowl the last couple of years, I got through working with a team that produced the in-stadium content when the Chargers played the Tennessee Titans in London in 2018. So all those little, you meet people down the road, and always be on the up and up and be the best person you can be, because you may ultimately cross paths with them again.
And I would just say really quickly to fine tune your research skills. There's so much information out there. And so really knowing how to effectively research and gather information, because information is power, and knowing how to use it successfully can really help you further your career along. So I would definitely say fine tune your research skills.
I'm going to have Destiny bring us one more question. We've got about 8 minutes to go. And I'm afraid you guys are all way ahead of the game. I was going to tell you to give us one last piece of wisdom for everybody, which you all just did. So now you've got to think of another one. That's the consequences of being good at what you do. Destiny, give us one question. And then Lauren, I'm going to start with you afterwards with one piece of advice.
All right, so alluding to your careers, your jobs, what gets you up in the morning, and what's the aspect of your job that you love the most? Like, what keeps you going?
Mine is easy. Mine is the impact that we're making every single day. And, I think if you ask anybody on our team, we go to, I'll take JJ Watt's Charity Classic event that we do. I think that when you ask us what was best about the event, it wasn't being around the guys. It wasn't the 30,000 people in the stands. It wasn't, so many of the things that was happened. We debrief after an event, and the event was, we recognized a 100-year-old veteran that when it was announced, he looked at our team member with tears in his eyes saying, "These people are standing for me." Those are the moments that we get to take away, or the moment that a school that has never had uniforms before gets the pride of putting on a jersey to be able to utilize that. Right now we're doing an Athletes Doing Good campaign where athletes across the country are doing personalized videos for kids that are going through a medical challenge. And to see the responses as these kids are watching those videos, that gets me up every day.
Okay, that's tough to follow, but I will try. So my personal why is to leverage my own story to impact other people, and that's what I've been strive to do for my clients. So what really gets me up and keeps me going is helping professional athletes understand that the things that make them human are the things that are going to change other people's lives. And so that to me is so exciting, to the point a lot of what Chellee mentioned too. It's not the glitz and the glamour. That's not what it is. It's when a client calls me and has a life issue that they want to talk about, or they're battling something and they just need some great advice, or they need help with something. Being able to become a trusted person in someone's circle who's constantly being asked for handouts or money or advice or tickets or things, when you can become just that person who can be a friend who they want to call and talk to, that to me is what really keeps me going. Because once you kind of get over that boundary, and they want to be able to lean on you, and you're someone who they can trust, that's definitely what keeps me going. And then also the being able to give back. A lot of my clients, that's the focus. It's always, how do we leverage your story and the fact that maybe you didn't come from anything to help that next kid who needs something and needs some sort of motivation.
I think for me, it's just getting the opportunity to share stories with the general public of athletes, coaches, whoever it is, because sports is such a connecting unifier. And I think we've kind of really discovered that more than ever in this time when it's been absent, because we haven't had it, and we're looking forward to it. And we want it so badly because we want to feel that connection again, that connection with watching games on TV, seeing athletes if we can't be there in person and whatnot. But being able to share those stories is something that I just really love to do, and to have conversations. I've started a really fun series with the Chargers called Roll Call, where it looks just like this. It's like a big old Zoom call with me in different position groups. And it's just a lot of fun because we talk about different things, random things that kind of peel back the layer. Obviously I'm in this business because of football, but what can we kind of dig a little deeper and have people find out about these guys that again shows that they are just people at the end of the day. So getting able to do that is something that's really, really exciting. And honestly, I will never take for granted. And to echo Chellee and Lauren, this business can look fun and can look glamorous. And I got my Amazon ring light right here on me, but it is so not sometimes. I mean, we will get home from games at, 3 a.m, sometimes like that, and then have to be at work at 8 or 9 the next day. So you're working really, really hard, and you have to have that work ethic to really be successful. And you're not in this, again, I think Chellee had mentioned it earlier, to be friends with players. That's not what it is at all. But if you can earn their respect and earn their trust to be able to tell their story, which I've definitely gotten to do, that's something that I so appreciate. And that's definitely what gets me up every morning.
My why is definitely my family, faith, and my passion for the work that we do. I love that the athletes that we work with, because of my own background, they're able to really feel at ease when they work with me and know that there isn't a motive. And when you're able to do that, you really get to understand their true why and their passion for what they're trying to do. And since they have such a big platform, they're really able to make such a big impact. So I love what I do every day, and being able to actually love what you do every day is kind of a gift, because not everyone gets to experience that. So that is really my why.
Beautiful answers. Well, I want to thank you all for coming and talking to our campers. I'm sure that they have received an abundance of information that's really going to help them. I really appreciate everything that you guys have said, just being a woman, and really it's great to look up to you all and just have you all model excellence. So thank you. And campers, thank you all for taking the time to listen to these beautiful women as well.
Thanks, everybody. Small bit of housekeeping. Remember, campers, you've got your Career Explorer Pass program. Remember to watch the Chalk Talk videos. Feel free to start following all of these panelists online and see what good practices are for social media and building your own brand. And with that, we'll see everybody again at 2 o'clock. And the panelists, again, thank you so much. This was incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Destiny. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, guys.